All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Alliance of Angels webinar today. Thanks for joining us. Our topic today is how to build a compelling investor pitch. And today we are privileged to have a veteran entrepreneur and investor, and also a best-selling author, right? Shirish Nadkarni will be sharing his wisdom, expertise with us. Right, so before we dive in, just a few matters of logistics. We do ask that everyone, if you are not speaking, right, please put yourself on mute. So we have kind of a nice, quiet experience, and everyone will be able to listen and hear clearly and have a great experience. And we will also ask that, however, if you have a pressing question and you really want to ask Shirish something, just feel free. You can put something into the chat if you'd like to do that, or you can also speak up. This is a standard Zoom meeting, so feel free to speak up, and so we can have an interactive session. All right, so I'm going to give a few words about my organization. Alliance of Angels. We're an angel investing organization. We're here in the Pacific Northwest. We've got 140 angels in the group. Every year we put about 10 million into 20 companies, right? We have, in terms of sector, about half IT, about a quarter consumer. The rest is life sciences, hardware, energy, etc. So otherwise we are sector agnostic. We are also stage agnostic. So it's never too early to come reach out to us if you're looking for funding, right? We also have yes, let me just try. So again, if you are not speaking, we do ask that you put yourself on mute, right? So that we can have a quiet experience for everyone. Right. So the typical deal size for organization, most people who approach us, they are trying to raise about 500 to 1.5 million. And our typical check size from us is 250 to 500, just to give you a sense of the numbers. So if you're an entrepreneur on the call, you're interested in approaching us for fundraising, my email is at the bottom of this slide, or you can text me sometime during this call. Feel free to go ahead and do that. Happy to get back to you. Or I know sometimes we have some investors join us as well. If you're interested in learning more about angel investing, about my organization, yeah, feel free to reach out as well. So now I'm going to start talking, and I'm going to hand over the call, right, to Shirish, our speaker of today, and we'll get the event started. Thank you, Shirish.
Thank you, Eugene. Let me share my presentation.
Looking good.
All right, you can see my presentation?
Yep, looking good.
Okay, great, terrific. So hi, everyone. My name is Shirish Nadkarni. I'm a serial entrepreneur as well as a new author. I'll talk a little bit about my book in a few minutes. So as Eugene mentioned, the talk today is about how to raise millions of dollars with a killer investor pitch. Hopefully, a lot of you are planning to raise funding in the near future, and my goal is to really help you build a great investor presentation. So let me talk a little bit about my background. I've been in the Seattle area for the last 30 plus years. Started my career in the very early days of Microsoft in 1987, when Microsoft was still an MS-DOS company, and I was at Microsoft for about 12 years. Towards the end of my career, I worked on launching MSN.com. I did the acquisition of Hotmail, which was a big acquisition at that point, and then launched MSN.com, which became a top 3 web portal. And then I started my entrepreneurial journey. My first company was in the mobile email space, was acquired by RIM, or today known as BlackBerry. BlackBerry at one point was a widely used device. Unfortunately, that's not true anymore. But they really pioneered the mobile device segment. And then in 2007, I started a company called Limoca, which was in the social language learning space, and that also was acquired by Rosetta Stone. So I've done 3 different startups. I've raised over 30 million in funding across these startups. I've raised in the best of times, for example, during the .com boom, and I've also raised money in the worst of times, during the financial crisis. For example, I raised $8 million from August Capital. So I've seen, different situations, different scenarios, and have had good luck raising money, throughout my journey. I recently wrote a book. It's called From Startup to Exit, an insider guide to launching and scaling your tech business. Is designed for aspiring entrepreneurs or early stage entrepreneurs, or even people who are really interested in understanding how the startup ecosystem works. And it's like a guidebook to help you really understand everything from startup formation to founding, raising money, scaling your company, and then ultimately finding an exit. It's won 2 different awards recently, one of which is listed here. Just won another award last week. And you can find it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Just search for my name or for my book title, and you'll find the book. And I hope you take time to take a look at the book and enjoy the book. So before I talk about how to build a compelling investor pitch, let me first discuss what is it that investors are really looking for. And as you may have heard, the top 3 things are team, team, and team. They really want to understand that if you're an A+ team that they can back, and that you have deep experience and understanding of the market that you're tackling. That's ideally the scenario that investors are looking for in terms of investing in a specific company. Is the team really an A+ team that I can back? The second thing that a lot of investors are looking for is some demonstrated traction, because sometimes it's hard to understand if a solution is going to be successful. And if you have traction that demonstrates that there is strong product market fit, that gives them the confidence that eventually the company can scale and become a very large company. And then they want to understand, is this a crowded space? And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but do you have, some technology, or are you riding some technology wave or trend that will allow you to differentiate yourself in the market? Do you have any kind of unfair competitive advantage that you can take advantage of? And ultimately, will you grow to be a multi-billion-dollar opportunity? Because investors really are looking for $1 billion plus exit, and unless you're operating in a market that is at least tens of billions of dollars, it's hard to really for the investors to make any kind of real money. By the way, as I go through my presentation, please feel free to either type in your question in the chat window, or you can unmute yourself and ask a question as well. So as I go through my slides, don't hesitate to ask any clarifying questions that you might have. Now, before you start working on your pitch, and by the way, you should give yourself a good 4 to 6 weeks to really prepare your pitch. Because you'll go through different iterations of your pitch. You'll get feedback from your investors, from your team members. And so it's good to give yourself enough time to really prepare for your pitch. But once you have your pitch ready, you need to spend time researching the right set of investors to pitch. Of course, you'd want to start with investors in your local area. So here in the Seattle area, you have Madrona Ventures, you have a number of other early stage VC firms like Flying Fish Capital, or Unlock Ventures, and others who are perfectly suited to for you to talk to. But you might also look at the Bay Area, for example, as another region where you can potentially make your pitch to investors. So make sure you spend the time to identify the right set of investors, by geography, by stage, whether they do B2B or B2C or both. Also understand their competitive investments. You don't want to pitch to an investor that has already invested in your space, for example. And then figure out, who is the appropriate partner for you to approach. Understand what is the industry expertise, what kind of investments they've made, to make sure that they're the right, partner to approach, because different partners may, invest in different areas. And one may be, a B2B investor, another may be a B2C investor, etc. So make sure to identify the appropriate set of partners that you want to approach. And then ideally, you want to identify successful founders that have had investments from that firm who can make intros for you. I mean, those are the best introductions that you can get. If you can get somebody to say, hey, this is a great company, I know the founders, I'm really excited about the company, you should take a look. That's the best kind of introduction that you can get. And then I always suggest a 5 to 6 page teaser investor deck to share with the introduction. Sometimes people write executive summaries, but honestly, people don't prefer that, and I would recommend a deck to share as opposed to an executive summary. Let me see if there's any question. All right, let's keep going. So before we get into the specifics of the deck and how it should be structured, I want to identify a couple of things that you should keep in mind. First and foremost, you should be telling a compelling story about how you founded the company. What are the major technology trends that influenced your decision to enter the market, and how you're really going to differentiate yourself. So this is not just a dry set of slides that you're presenting. You have to present really a compelling story, a vision for your company. So, and you want to let your passion really show through the presentation. The first presentation that you will do will be probably an hour presentation. So you don't need to get into all sorts of nitty-gritty details. Your goal is to stimulate interest in a subsequent meeting where the partner will bring in more partners, investors from their partnership, and you'll have more of an opportunity to go into depth about your technology and your solution. So again, remember, the goal is to really have them say, hey, this sounds great, really interesting company. We'd like you to come back next week for a more in-depth meeting. The third thing that I want to really emphasize here, and I've seen people put together really long presentations, is in a meeting that's an hour long with lots of questions, you have roughly half an hour to present. You'll not get through more than 10 to 12 slides. So keep your slide deck short and succinct. Have an appendix ready where if somebody has a more detailed question, you can jump to that detail if necessary. In fact, you should remember the page number so you can go directly to that slide. And keep the presentation as short as possible. And then, as I mentioned before, nobody really likes to read a business plan or an executive summary anymore. A presentation is sufficient to get investors interested in your company. So here's a typical outline that you should plan for your investor pitch. I will go through each of these slides next. This is very similar to an outline that was promoted by Sequoia Capital. I made some modifications here, but what they provide is also a very good outline. So if you just Google Sequoia Capital pitch deck outline, you'll find that on the internet. It's very similar. So let me now go through each of these slides to outline in more detail what you need to cover in each slide. So first, you need to kind of provide an overview of the company. What is it that the company does? What problem it solves, or what needs it is addressing. If you're, for example, Starbucks, your company purpose would be providing premium Italian coffee for coffee aficionados. Ideally, you want to provide analogies where possible. For example, if you are providing a carpooling service, for after-school rides, then you could position yourself as Uber for after-school rides. So if you can provide analogies where possible, that will really help investors understand what is it that the company provides. And then, as I mentioned earlier, share your founder story. What was the inspiration for your idea? What is the deep understanding that you have of the market opportunity that allowed you to come up with your solution, and why you're excited to bring that to the marketplace. Next, you want to dive right into the problem that you're addressing. What is the specific need that you have identified in the marketplace? You want to discuss how that problem is being solved today. Are there existing companies in the space? And what is lacking with the current solution? Or what is the technology trend that is impacting the market that would allow you to bring a superior solution to the market? So, for example, you might have a situation where you have a bunch of existing competitors in the space that have been around for a long time, but now with AI ML technology, you can provide much better prediction capability, and that will allow you to provide a much better solution versus the competition. And so that might be why you are entering the market. Let me share an example of a company that I was an investor in called Ally, which was recently acquired by Microsoft for a big acquisition. They are a SaaS solution for managing OKRs, or what's known as objectives and key results. It's a big trend for managing by objectives. A lot of big companies like Google and Intel and others use this methodology. And originally what happened was companies tried to track OKRs using spreadsheets. But the pain point was that spreadsheets were really not effective for tracking OKRs and providing transparency around how different parts of the organization were using OKRs. And so Ally came out with a solution to a custom, SaaS-based solution to track and manage OKRs that customers really found very easy to use and was a much better solution for managing OKRs versus using spreadsheets. So that's an example of a problem that existed and the solution that was developed to address that problem. So next, now that you discussed the problem, you want to talk about what kind of solution you're providing and how it uniquely addresses the problem that you've identified. Again, if you're using, for example, AI ML technology, you might want to talk about how that allows you to make better predictions and provide a better solution for your target market. As much as possible, you want to show your solution in action. You should plan to do a 5-minute live demo, but it's not uncommon to encounter problems, and so you might want to record a video of your demo as well that you can have in your back pocket if your live demo, for example, does not work. And then you want to talk about how customers are successfully utilizing your solution, how they've solved their problems, what kind of ROI they're realizing with your solution, and how they've been able to successfully deploy your solution in their organization. And then also describe, what is your secret sauce? For example, if you're using AI/ML, maybe you have access to proprietary data sets that only you have access to, that would allow you to build a compelling solution. Or you might, have a bunch of PhDs from University of Washington that have, unique expertise in your AI/ML solution. So definitely point out what is unique about your solution and what expertise you bring to bear with your solution. The next slide that you wanted to bring up is traction. This is one of the most important slides that you want to share with your audience. So you want to hear, what you want to show is evidence of customers who are using your solution. If you're marquee customers who are very happy with your solution, you want to share that, share their logos here. And then you want to share charts on user growth, on engagement, retention, revenues, if you have any early revenues to share. And make sure you don't show cumulative metrics. What you want to show ideally is cohorts of user and show what kind of engagement you're getting, how that engagement and retention is improving, over time. Cohort analysis is one of the best set of metrics that you can present to your audience. If your solution has not been launched, it's very early stage, then share any kind of market research you have to validate that there is demand for your solution. Next, you want to talk about the market opportunity. How big is the market? How fast it's growing? And most importantly, why now? What are the macro trends that are affecting this market, and why this market is at a unique inflection point? As an example, I launched Limoca in 2007, and at that time, the major trends were globalization, broadband internet penetration was very high, and social networking was on the rise. And so I painted this picture of how globalization was creating a need for English language learning, and that there were billions of users who were interested in learning English, and that this was really a huge, market opportunity. And so if there are a billion users each paying $100 to learn English, that was $100 billion, market opportunity. So that's kind of the picture that you want to paint for why this is an exciting, market opportunity. And then, obviously share any kind of industry reports, share data about what kind of revenues players might have, existing players might have, to validate the market size. And as I mentioned before, typically investors are really interested in market opportunities that are tens of billions of dollars in size. Now, that does not mean necessarily that today the market has to be tens of billions of dollars, but that it can grow to become tens of billions of dollars. There's a great example of a company called Icertis here locally that's really very successful in the contract management space. When they started in 2011, the contract management space was no more than a couple of $100 million in size. But today, it's a $20 billion market. And Icertis has really benefited from this fast-growing market opportunity. Next, you want to describe the overall competitive landscape and how you fit into that from a strategic perspective. And typically what most people do is show a 2x2 chart, identify the key axis of differentiation, and then you want to put yourself on the top right-hand corner. What you don't want to do is to show featureless, because that simply suggests that you might have a few features that are better than your competition. It does not suggest that you have some really strategic areas of differentiation that can provide sustainable competitive advantage over time. So really be careful about how you position yourself, avoid featureless comparison, show how you are different strategically, what is your area of competitive sustainable advantage, whether it's network effects you'll establish, whether it's proprietary data sets you have access to, or whether that's you have a bunch of PhDs on your team that have filed various patents in your space. So that's how you should really differentiate yourself from your competition.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
I agree, like with the avoiding just listing features, but how do you make sure it's like tangible enough and not too abstract? Like it's easy to say, oh, we're going to have network effects as an advantage, but actually delivering that advantage is, it's easy to say but hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
yeah, let's take network effects for example. You can actually demonstrate early network effects using cohort analysis, for example. So you can show, for example, that as over time, that your engagement has improved, your retention has improved. These are all indicators of improving network effects. So it's not just a statement that you're making, you're actually showing metrics to differentiate yourself, as well as to show that network effects are starting to set in, and you're showing increased user growth. As an example, with Limoca, my language learning company, we had this notion of a social network of language learners, and we could show how fast we were growing. So we got to 100,000 users within 3 months, 1 million users within a year. So those are all evidences of network effects being showing through. So think about those my suggestions as how you could provide evidence from a competitive perspective. All right, if there are no other questions, I'll keep going. So the next slide you want to talk about is about your go-to-market strategy, your business model. This is also a very important slide. And what I found through my experience as an investor is that technologists generally do a great job of talking about the technology and what problems they're addressing, et cetera. But they don't really do a good job of describing their go-to-market strategy and the business model. And so this is really, again, a very important slide to talk about how you are exactly planning to reach your customers, customer set, who is your customer, and the customer segments that you're addressing. Talk about if you have done any kind of marketing campaigns, SCM campaigns or Facebook marketing, discuss those specific tactics, share specific metrics around CPC rates that you're experiencing, conversion rates from trial to paid, et cetera. Talk about your pricing model, how that's similar or different from competition. And then if possible, if you have enough experience, you want to talk about your cost of customer acquisition and lifetime value, because investors are really very interested in that, and they want to see a minimum of 3-to-1 ratio between customer lifetime value and your customer acquisition cost, if not 5-to-1 type of scenarios. So as much as possible, discuss your specific tactics and the kind of conversion rates you're getting, and also your LTV to CAC ratio. So going back to the Ally example I gave earlier, they used SEM primarily to target customers who are searching for OKR solutions on the internet. And they had good conversion they had a trial program, and then they were converting quite effectively from trial to paid customers. They had a good understanding of the customer acquisition cost as a result. And then they were able to track the churn rate and so forth that allowed them to build out their customer lifetime value. And so they had a really good set of metrics that they could share in their customer presentation. Looks like we have a few questions in the chat window. Let me, I'm unable to, hold on, here you go. In your experience, are investors generally reticent to investing in blue ocean markets? I wouldn't say so necessarily. Big open opportunities are definitely very interesting. If there are no real major competitors in that space, if you can show good traction, initial traction, and you can have customers who can talk about why they love the solution, then I think you can get beyond the fact that there may not be existing evidence of the market. But certainly investors are open to investing in open opportunities as well. So the next thing that you want to talk about is your team. And as I mentioned, team is the top 3 things that the investors are really focused on. Oftentimes I will see people making the mistake of just listing their team members and quickly going through that slide. I would say that, again, this is a very important slide that you want to spend some time on. You want to talk about why you bring specific expertise to this market, what evidence you have of that, what kind of accomplishments you have achieved that you can share to give confidence that how to build a great solution for this market. You may also list your key advisors that you bring to the table, but don't make the mistake of just listing people who are not really contributing to your company. List advisors who are really adding value to your team and your company. And then if there are team members who are currently part-time, make sure to point that out, but also to point out that they're going to join full-time once you raise funding for the company. All right, there's some questions here. What advice do you have for first-time founders when approaching the team section? So again, the key thing to point out is the specific expertise you bring to the market. So maybe you're working at Microsoft or Amazon in the cloud space, and you've done a lot of work in that space. That will bring a lot of credibility. Or if you have patents that you have filed, that again would have a lot of credibility to bring to bear with any investor. So another question is, we are a social impact startup that provides on-demand car wash and detail services. Can we say we are an Uber for car wash services? Certainly, that's a good analogy that you can share with investors. All right, great questions. Please keep them coming. All right, let's talk about financials, because I see a lot of mistakes being made here, where people will spend an inordinate amount of time building 5-year P&L models. And honestly, nobody really pays any attention to that. Nobody really believes in them. What I would focus on is the next 12 to 24 months, where you'll be utilizing the funding that you're getting from your investors, because that's where you have at least some understanding of how you're going to spend the money and what kind of revenue you could generate. And then as far as your revenues are concerned, make sure that you utilize the data that you have achieved through any kind of marketing campaigns you have had. So talk about how much money you're going to spend, and then what kind of traffic you'll generate, what kind of conversion you'll get based on the prior marketing campaigns that you have conducted in the past. So to the extent you can use actual data, your model will be a lot more credible as a result. And then outline your main expenses in terms of headcount, marketing spend, infrastructure, etc. And then finally, you'll get to the ask slide. Talk about your funding history to date. Make sure to point out how much investment you have personally made. That'll bring a lot of credibility if there's significant investment, whether it's your own time or money that you put into the business. And then outline how much funding you're raising. Have a specific number in mind, not a range. So don't say I'm raising 1 to 2 million. Say you're raising 2 million. Outline how you plan to use those funds and for what period of time. And then list the key milestones that you expect to hit with your funding. So you might want to say, my next round of funding will be a Series A. I expect to hit 1 million ARR in revenues, and I expect to have 10 marquee customers. So those are examples of milestones that you can outline for your fundraise. Okay, let's see, there are 2 questions. Will you share the slides? Yes, I think Eugene, I provided my slides, so definitely will be able to share my slides as well.
Yeah, as long as you sign out the Eventbrite, we'll be sending out the slides to everyone on the list.
Yeah. Thank you, Eugene. So finally, some general do's and don'ts. As I mentioned, keep your slide deck to no more than 12 to 13 slides. Keep them. I see a lot of people with very complicated slides that are difficult to understand. So keep your slides simple, limited to 5 bullets per slide. I would also encourage you to hire a designer. So first, develop your slide deck on your own, and then hire a designer to really help you make the slide deck come alive and make it much more visual, more pictorial, and easy to understand. Provide as much evidence as possible to validate your story. Talk about the traction that you have received to date. Practice as much as possible. Get the timing right. You want to give yourself no more than half an hour to get through your slides, because you'll have lots of questions along the way, and you will not get through more than 10 to 12 slides in your presentation. And then you will need to iterate on your slide deck. When I did my presentation, literally between presentations, I would be incorporating investor feedback and updating my slides as I understood what was confusing, what was not really getting through. So make sure to incorporate investor feedback, and of course, stick to your guns. Just because somebody, you very well find that there are, contradictory points of view from your investors. So don't change your story just because somebody really objects to it. Stick to your guns, stick to your core beliefs, and that will get you through and allow you to raise money for your company. Let's see, there are some more questions in the chat window. What's investors feeling about using an AI generated voiceover for a pitch? I do our biz dev in small meetings. You don't want me to hear my pitch because I stutter. As much as possible, really, you want to do a live presentation. If you're not confident about your abilities to do that, then maybe there is another team member you can invite to do your presentation. But I would not hesitate just because you stutter. People will understand that situation, and I'm sure you'll do a great job of, if you really show the passion, I'm sure that'll come through in your presentation. The next question is, will there be a recording sent out as well? EGN, can you answer that question?
Yes, we're publishing the recording to our YouTube channel.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can I ask another question?
Yes, please.
Like if during a pitch, you have people trying to like take the presentation off course, they're really interested, they're enthusiastic, and you can maybe like take a deep dive into something. To what degree do you try and like stay on target with your presentation? Or if it's going well and they're taking it in another direction, do you just go with it?
Yeah, just keep an eye. No, that's a good point. You certainly don't want to get into any kind of rat holes. So you can say, I'm happy to, maybe spend a couple of minutes and then say, hey, looks like there's a lot more detail you want. I'd be happy to come back and, spend a lot more detail time on this particular point. And most people will understand that. If it's going well in a certain direction, certainly go with the flow. But again, make sure that you get through most of your slides. So keep a good half an hour for your own presentation, and watch your clock, because at the end of the hour, your time will be up.
So you do want to like kind of keep control of, you're the lead and not let them take it from you.
Yeah, definitely. You want to keep you can say, hey, I just want to do a time check here. And I have a couple of more slides to go through. If you don't mind, I'd like to go on to the next slide, and we'll come back to this later on if we have time. So definitely keep control of your time.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's a question of what's an unfair advantage. So that's an advantage that you uniquely have. We talked about network effects as an example of an unfair, competitive advantage, because once you establish network effects, it's very hard for competitors to really enter the space and be successful. So again, it's an advantage that you uniquely have that others don't have. So I'm at the end of my presentation. I hope you found this useful. I'm happy to answer any more questions at this point. Great questions that came along the way, but I'm happy to answer any more questions. And you can see my website where you'll find information about how to connect with me. I have also other presentations there about how to find product market fit and other interesting topics as well. I'll type in my email address here if you want to get a hold of me. And then if you're interested in my book, here's a link to Amazon where you can find my book. So Eugene, I'll turn it back to you at this point to see if there are any more questions.
Yeah, thanks again. So does anyone have any questions for Shirish? Feel free to speak up, right? Or if you want to put something into the chat, that all works. Anybody?
Are you receiving pitches?
Am I receiving pitches? Sorry, what was the question again?
Yeah, I was like, are you accepting pitches?
Yes, I do accept pitches. I'm currently a member of an organization called TIE or TIE. It's an organization that fosters entrepreneurship, and we have an affiliated fund that invests in B2B companies. So if you have a B2B solution, definitely would be very interested in hearing about it. And you can either send me email to my email address or connect with me over LinkedIn. So here's a question. I'm planning on creating a nonprofit for low-income families. How far into creating a business plan do you look for a team and look for funding? How do you provide background for something that has never been done before? So as much as possible, look for at least a co-founder. Initially, most investors will not fund solo founder companies. So, try to find a co-founder at least who can work with you on the business plan. And then if you can bootstrap the company for as long as possible, that's very important because you want to show some kind of traction, whether it's a completed product or you have some customers. But if that's not possible, then obviously start looking for funding to help you, pay for your product development. Then the question is, let's see. Okay, Eugene, somebody's asking for the YouTube channel name. Can you talk about where people can find your, the presentations?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is to just search Alliance of Angels YouTube on Google, but I have also added the link into the chat.
All right, so another question was, especially for someone with no entrepreneur background, where do you find people who can help navigate you? So what I would suggest is look for people with prior experience in your industry, and then connect with them over LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm building a solution for this market. Looks like you have a lot of experience in this market. Love to get your benefit of your experience. Can we connect and can we chat, where I can tell you more about my idea. So LinkedIn can be a very useful source for finding people who can help you navigate your company. They may be able to help you find investors who may be looking to invest in your company. And then, of course, organizations like TIE, like Alliance of Angels, Kiritsu Forum are all great organizations to help you connect to, to individuals as well as organizations that can help provide funding.
Okay, great. Thanks. Oh, there's one more question.
Yeah, what's your opinion on NDAs? Good question. Nobody in the angel investing or the VC space will sign an NDA. And I would not be too worried about sharing your idea. The ideas are a dime a dozen. What really matters is execution. And you'll get lots of great feedback once you share your idea that'll help you fine tune your business plan. So don't worry about asking for NDAs, just share your business plan and nobody's going to, build a solution before you do, and it all comes down to execution. Should you put in LinkedIn links for your team and advisors? Yeah, absolutely. You should do that in your deck so that people can easily look up the LinkedIn information about your team and advisors. What do investors look as return when investing? Well, investors are looking for at least 10 to 50x return on any kind of investment. They want to see that your company can become $1 billion exit, for them. So they want to see companies that can grow to become $50 to $100 million in revenue over the next 5 to 7 years.
All right.
All right.
All right. Looks like we are done with questions. Great. So thanks to everyone for participating and for keeping this interactive. And also I would like to thank Shirish for all his time this morning, sharing all his thoughts, his wisdom, his years and years of experience with us today. So thanks again. Thank you to Shirish. Thank you to everyone.
Yeah, thank you, Jin, for this opportunity. Hope this session was useful, and look forward to connecting to folks in this session.
Great. All right. So take care, everyone. Wish everyone a great rest of the week.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.